Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Saturday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It is match day, of course. Arsenal taking on Bournemouth in just a few hours' time at the Emirates, the first of their final 4 Premier League games of the season, kicking off very, very soon. I will talk about that, of course, in this show. That's what we're going to focus on. We're going to look at the team selections Mikel's got coming up. We're going to look at the predicted 11. We're going to look at what he's had to say ahead of the game in connection with the match against Paris Saint-Germain, which is coming up looming large on Wednesday night. We'll look at what he's had to say more on Max Dowman. He spoke about him briefly in this sort of first part of the press conference yesterday. He went into it in a little bit more depth, which is quite interesting in the embargo section of the press conference. So we'll look at what he's had to say about that and look at what some of you guys have had to say as well as we build up to, like I said, the first of the final 4 games of the Premier League season. Manchester City winning yesterday, last night, beating Wolves 1-0. Quite fortunate to win that game. Wolves really should have put themselves in a really good position in that first half, and they played very, very well, but missed some big chances. City ended up winning it with De Bruyne scoring the only goal of the game. That moves them to within 3 points of Arsenal. So Arsenal need to win this one to open up that 6-point gap again and really take a firm command on second place and pretty much wrap up a Champions League spot with a victory today against Bournemouth. And it is going to be played, of course, in the sort of backdrop of Wednesday night, which is going to does take preference. Obviously, it's a huge game. Arsenal's season basically is going to be defined by what happens on Wednesday night in Paris. But you do kind of have to put that to one side for now. You could see the players in training yesterday, the pictures that the club put out. There was lots of smiling, trying to sort of raise spirits. I imagine Martin Odegaard, I was reading his program notes just now. They put it out on the website, as they do, sort of brief, a sort of little part of the program notes. They put it out on the website. I was reading it. He was talking about how Tuesday night was frustrating, how there was fine margins and all that sort of stuff, and that he still thinks they can go to Paris Saint-Germain and win. Going to hear an awful lot of that, but you've got to take charge of today's game. This is still an important game. And it's going to be interesting what Mikel does in terms of his team selection, no doubt about that. The team news we spoke about in the show I did yesterday after the press conference, when he sort of ran through and he said Calafiori's out, Jorginho's out with this lung issue that he has. Hopefully will be back soon. I also talked about Kai Havertz, of course, who should be back for a few games, according to Mikel Arteta, but none of these guys are going to be back available today. He was asked if there was a chance of them being available on Wednesday, and he said he wouldn't rule any of them out. I mean, I'd be very, very surprised, especially Kai Havertz, but we'll wait and see. Open training is on Tuesday, of course, at London Colney before the team do fly out, but no one's going to be fit today in terms of the sort of injured players coming back for this game. Arsenal do have Thomas Partey back, though, of course, from suspension. And that just kind of, again, raises the question of who do you start in this game? Who do you leave out? Who do you rest? Who do you start? Do you do wholesale changes? He was pushed on that yesterday in the sort of embargo section of the press conference. And he said, we're just going to have to wait and see. We'll assess the players. It was a pretty stock answer. He said some of them still had niggles in training, so they're going to assess and see how it goes. I don't think, and we'll get to predicted 11 in a bit, I don't think he's going to make too many changes. I said it yesterday. I think he's going to be very keen on just focusing on the Bournemouth game. And when he was asked about how you're going to stop the players thinking about PSG this weekend and being able to focus on Bournemouth, he says, I will discuss that, because the only thing we can control is our performance, is our emotional state and how well we are performing. We know how important it is still. A lot of things that we have to do in the Premier League, even though we haven't achieved what we wanted. I take the opportunity as well to congratulate Liverpool on what they've done in the manner that they've done it, how consistent they've been. And I think they fully deserve it. They were the better team. They had so many attributes. They had consistently their squad available, and we're going to try again. But at the moment, next season, we're not. Now we're going to have to finish this season very strong. On if finishing second is the target for now, he said yes for sure. Interesting the way he talked about Liverpool there. He did that a fair bit in a press conference yesterday, sort of passing on the best. But every single time he spoke about it, you could tell he was always just a little bit. It hurt. He admitted it. He said it hurts in his tummy, that it hurts. He did always point to the fact that they had a lot of their players available, and he spoke about that more in, how important it is keeping your fittest players available and what Arsenal are going to do to try and improve that next season, because it just wasn't good enough this season. He said there's going to be doing a lot of work to make sure that is the case. When you sort of look at the team today, and this is what I think he might do when I'm doing the predicted 11 here, I just can't see, and I can't see him making too many changes. And we spoke about it yesterday, I know. a lot of people are of the sort of opinion that we should be resting everyone for this game, that it really doesn't matter. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I don't know. There's just this real fear in me, especially in midfield. I think I would love to not play Declan Rice, and I would love to not play Thomas Partey in this game. Love it. But I just don't know what you could do. Maybe you could play, you could bring in Zinchenko and rest Rice, but then you're still going to have to play Thomas Partey. And we saw just how important Thomas Partey is to this team in that first leg, and what his absence does, and the knock-on effect it has. Not just the fact that he's not on the pitch, but then where you have to play Declan Rice, where you have to play Mikel Merino. So ideally for me, Partey wouldn't be anywhere near this game. I just think he's so important to Wednesday night that I just would not play him. But then with Jorginho out, it's like, what do you do? Who do you play in that number 6 role if Thomas Partey's not there? So it's a really tough one. And also, if Arsenal lose this game, as I spoke about before, I just think the momentum of taking a win into the Paris game will be really, really big. And also trying to just basically really take firm control on second spot and pretty much guarantee yourself Champions League spot as well. The sooner you do that, the better. So I think he's going to make a few changes. I think there'll be fullback changes. So I've brought White and Zinchenko into that. And then I think one of the Saka or Martinelli won't play. And I think it will probably be Martinelli. I think he'll start Saka. So my predicted 11, this is what I think Arteta will do, is Raya, White, Saliba, Kivior, Zinchenko, Partey, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, Marino, and Trossard on the left. So Marino going back up front and Trossard moving to the left. As I said, I would be very keen to maybe play Tierney at left back myself and then move Zinchenko into the midfield position, whether that be for Rice or Partey. One of the two, maybe for Partey, but then you're risking Declan Rice again. It's a really tough one. So I'm glad I'm not the manager. I have to say, it's annoying that Jorginho isn't fit. If Jorginho's fit, I'd be playing Jorginho in this game all day long. Just really, really simple. Just play Jorginho there. But the fact he's not, I think, just makes it a lot more difficult. Going through what some of you guys have had to say about your team selections, David here has gone Raya, Tierney, Saliba, Kivior, White, Zinchenko, Partey, Odegaard, Trossard, Butler, Adeji, and Nwaneri. And then you say bring on Saka, Marino, and Martinelli for minutes. Ryan says, thanks for the 2-a-day video. No problem, Ryan. My lineup against Bournemouth is Trossard. I'll start from the back. KT, left back, Kivior, White, and Timber. Zinni, Partey, and Nwaneri. Sterling, Marino, and Trossard. So both of you there resting Declan Rice. Sam says, as long as he doesn't start Sterling, a win here is important. I don't think he'll start Sterling in this game, I have to say. I know he did in the match against Crystal Palace, but I'd be very surprised if he does that again. Raya in goal, Lewis Skelly, Saliba, Kivior, and White. Partey, Rice, and Zinchenko. Saka, Marino, and Gabby. So that's Zinchenko for Odegaard there in your team. You said subs 45 to 60. Tierney for MLS, Trossard for Rice, Marino into 8, Nwaneri for Saka. Then you've got Timber for White and Zinchenko for Marino. Couple more here. As Bernard, isn't it, at the top there, says the 11 I would start versus Bournemouth would be Raya, White, Saliba, Kivior, Tierney, Partey, Nwaneri, Rice, Saka, Marino, Martinelli. Get a couple of goals and bring on Odegaard, Trossard, Zinchenko, and MLS. Finally, Aaron says heavy rotations are needed for Bournemouth. I know we have to clinch our second place in the league, but all eyes and minds are leaned towards that big game in Paris next week. No one will blame or complain even if we throw in some big rotations. We all know what is the most important game now. And after that semi-final second leg in Paris, we can think about the remaining fixtures. Obviously, the next 2 games after this one are pretty tough, though. So you've got Liverpool away at Anfield, then you've got Newcastle at home, a team that Arsenal always seems to struggle against. So when you're looking at where you're definitely you got your best chance of picking up points. I know Bournemouth are a very good team. They've had a great season, but you look at Bournemouth and Southampton, you take 6 points from those 2 games. Liverpool and Newcastle don't really matter, to be honest. But thank you guys for sending in interesting ones there. Lots of you going for resting Rice, which I thought was very, very interesting. Lots of you resting Odegaard as well, or dropping Odegaard. I don't know which is which, given how people have been talking about him in the last 48 hours or so. But thank you very much for those comments. Right, before we go, I just wanted to talk about Max Dowman. I know I spoke about him yesterday because Mikel said some interesting stuff in the sort of live section of the press conference. He's gone into it in a lot more depth in the embargoed section when he was talking about Dowman. He was asked about if sort of players, if football's kind of changing now in terms of, the age of the players and what they can do so young. And he was sort of asked specifically about not only Ethan and Miles, but Yamal at Barcelona as well. And he said, Mikel was like, well, it's kind of different. You've got to put it on context there. You're talking about just 3 players, not everyone, but you're talking about 3 very special players, of which we have 2. But then he went on about Dowman. He said, look, but when I talk about Max and now he is involved in the squad, he trains with us a lot. Does that mean he will play in the Premier League many games? I don't know. It depends how good he is and how impressive he is and how much he offers the team, like Ethan, like Miles, like any other player in the squad. I think he is in the right pathway, and everybody in the academy has done an incredible job to consistently protect him, inspire him, challenge him, keep him always up and the levels that he could produce, and he is doing well. He is doing the right steps and taking it slowly. He will dictate how fast we go. You need to understand his age and the way you talk and communicate with him. But if you look from afar and you don't know he is 15 and you see certain things that he does, you have to judge him on that. And you wouldn't think he was different to any other player. Now, I've watched Dowman in training with the first team a few times, and hopefully I will on Tuesday if I go down for open training, which I'm planning to do. And when Mikel says that, he's absolutely spot on. You know, if you take away, if you're looking from afar at that training session and you just put out your mind that he's 15, he just looks like he's part of the senior squad. You know, he's strong, he's big, he puts himself about, the way he handles himself. He doesn't look like a kid out there. And I think that's very, very important. Now, like Mikel says, how many minutes he plays next season kind of depends on him and how he sort of takes the chances that he does get. Is he going to come in and start every single game? No, of course he's not. Are Arsenal going to try and protect him? Will Arteta protect him? I'm sure he will. But if he's good enough and he shows that he can handle it at this level, I'm sure he's going to get some minutes next season. The only frustrating thing for Arsenal is it's another player coming through the academy, potentially top player coming through the academy, who's sort of right-sided, who cuts in on his left-hand side. You've got Saka, obviously, you've got Ethan, and now you're going to have Max as well. So sort of how you combine all of those 3 and get them into the team. I mean, that's a big decision for Arteta when that decision has to be made. Obviously, it's too early to do that now. But it is frustrating. It could have done with him playing, being on the opposite flank. To be honest, he was then asked whether Dowman will go on pre-season tour. I think he probably will, by the way. But he was asked about that when Arsenal go out to Singapore for pre-season. And Mikel says, look, we'll discuss that at the end of the season. We'll talk to Mertesacker, the academy manager, of course, the academy coaches as well, and him and his environment about how we are going to now create a development plan for him next season, like we do any other player at the club, and take the right steps. Hopefully. Now, Ethan went for pre-season last summer. He had a really good pre-season and kind of never looked back from that point. I think Max will definitely go. I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't go on the pre-season tour. You know, he's just a natural part of training now, pretty much all the time when it comes to senior the first team. So I'd be very surprised if he doesn't go on that tour. I think the club will have a really good look at him in those games. Maybe he'll play in the Emirates Cup if we're going to have an Emirates Cup this summer. I'm not actually sure if that's going to be the case or not. And then, the club will make a decision then. I think we're going to see him next season. I'm sure he'll make his debut next season, senior competitive debut next season. Real talent on Arsenal's hands. Going to be interesting to see how it pans out. And that's it for today, everyone. Enjoy the game later. If you're going, sun's out, classic early May game at the Emirates. Enjoy it. Fingers crossed for 3 points. I'll be back in the morning to do the review show. You want to get involved in that show, you know what to do. Come here after the full-time whistle, get down into the comments, talk about what impressed you, what didn't, your player of the match, all that sort of stuff. And I'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show. Until then, have a great day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.